One of my favorite Disney classics growing up was Lilo and Stitch, a story about a chaotic but adorable blue alien creature, a lonely Hawaiian girl struggling to make friends,
My friends need to be punished.
and the power of Ohana, which means family, which means no one gets left behind, unless you're hand-drawn animation, in which case Disney left you for dead a long time ago.
As for that abomination, it is the flawed product of a deranged mind.
The 2025 Lilo and Stitch remake is the latest offering from the conveyor belt of live-action remakes from Disney. It's heavily based on the original animated film from 2002, and despite the core elements of the original story being present, there are several changes that lessen the emotional impact of this film. Certain core characters are watered down, obvious cuts were made to save money on CGI, such as removing one important character in particular, the antagonist, Captain Gantu. And maybe it was just me, but so many scenes in this film felt like they were just being rushed. Is the attention span of today's audience really that bad? In terms of positives, I did like how the CGI Stitch looked. I think one of the biggest concerns about the remake initially was whether he would look good enough translating into 3D animation, and whether he'd be believable as a real-world asset. And props to the animators and the modelling teams for their work, because he does look fantastic. Likewise, the acting from Maya Kaloha, the little girl who plays Lilo, she fits the role extremely well, and at times her line delivery sounded exactly like the original film. Other than admiring some of the new character designs and how they were based on the unique originals, there's not really much else to appreciate here, and I feel really harsh saying that because I know a lot of work goes into these films. I'm sure the remake was approached with the best intentions, bringing back an existing IP for new audiences, and allowing a different filmmaker to give their take on it, but sadly the reputation of these live-action films has been on the steady decline.
I kinda want something other to eat.
It's as though the remake wants to be heartfelt, and it gestures the right themes such as loneliness, family struggles, and how to forgive, but it does these things with such a lack of sincerity, plus it skips over the whole found family angle in favour of a redundant ending that I felt did more damage than good. Luckily, Stitch does remain true to his character, beginning as the chaotic experiment we know and love. Jumba's trial and the entire escape sequence is significantly cut down. The trial itself plays out similarly to the original, but Jumba's monologue that introduces Stitch is instead swapped out to a series of quick-cut edits. It honestly just feels like a Family Guy cutaway, but it's supposed to show the audience what Experiment 626 is capable of. Not really a fan of this method of storytelling because the escape itself and subsequent scenes throughout the film are supposed to show us what Stitch is capable of. Like I said before praising how some characters translated over, I did really enjoy how certain background characters translated from the original, including this little robot guy that vomits nuts and bolts. He even got a line of dialogue in the remake, which was quite fun. But the lack of Captain Gantu is noticeable. I'm guessing this is why the entire sequence leading to Stitch escaping was reduced, and likewise, I was so disappointed that the prison cell scene was removed in its entirety. This is where Pleakley is introduced to Jumba, where they are tasked with travelling to Earth to recover Stitch. But in the remake, Jumba is the one who bargains for his freedom and his laboratory in exchange for capturing the experiment.
He got away?
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of this change. It makes the Galactic Federation and the Grand Council woman appear easily swayed, where Jumba appears to have all the power to make such demands. I find a lot of the scenes replicating stuff from the original are just so frustrating because they feel like a parody. Iconic lines are just being read aloud rather than performed, and not to mention dumbing down certain bits of dialogue. The line about how Stitch's molecular density is too great, which means he won't survive in water. Did they really need to clarify that any further in the remake, since it tacks on an extra line about how he'll drown? It just feels unnatural to willingly diminish an existing line of dialogue with something that just reduces its meaning entirely. A lot of the side characters are portrayed as inherently stupid, which gives into the typical slapstick Disney humour, and I saw this film in the cinema with my niece who is 3 years old, and not once did she laugh at Jumba hitting his head or any of the fart jokes. Instead, she was just loving the character of Stitch. And that's really the highlight by far, and I like how the film does stick to the main story beats for him, such as pretending to be a dog, Lilo adopting him, basically using her as a defense mechanism from being captured by Jumba and Pleakley. Looking at the more grounded elements of this story, the tragedy of Nani struggling to keep custody of Lilo feels nothing short of a subplot. It bears little to no emotional weight compared to the original film, and their relationship is a core strength to both characters. Even with arguments and family conflict, they needed each other and forgave each other for their behavior, causing each other problems. But this is completely redundant in the remake. Nani doesn't really pay much attention to Lilo, she's often distracted or disinterested, and there are some scenes that are supposed to be emotional but feel one-sided. I thought it would have turned this around to make Nani more attentive by the end, but instead, I was very surprised that the sisters were split up and Nani then gets to go off and pursue her dreams studying marine biology. This leads me on to how the film repurposes existing side characters whilst also adding brand new ones. The role of Cobra Bubbles, for example, is split into two. We have Bubbles himself, a CIA agent who's posing as a social worker, and then the actual social worker herself, Mrs. Kakoa. Her role assesses whether or not Nani is capable of looking after Lilo, and ultimately her decision leans to Nani taking a step back to focus on herself. I didn't really think much of Nani's relationship with David, it doesn't really have any chemistry behind it. It was interesting how they wrote his grandmother to be Lilo's guardian by the end, however. It's a plot point that does work, keeping some form of connection between all of these characters, who may be distant but are not estranged from one another. There is a twist villain, which truthfully isn't much of a twist. With the absence of Captain Gantu, Jamba fills his massive shoes. And there's no redemption arc for him in this film. He just wants to capture Stitch, trying to suppress his emotional connection to his creation, and it was very bizarre seeing this character in live action, but the voice just being Zach Galifianakis really didn't work for me. I miss Jamba's estranged accent, his abrupt temper, and the amusing dynamic he shares with Bleakley. These two are supposed to offer some of the best comic relief. They're serious about their mission, but somewhat incompetent due to struggling with fitting in, obviously being aliens, but fart jokes and slapstick comedy once again make this an abomination to sit through. Generally speaking, I really did not enjoy this film. I ended up rewatching the original just to cleanse my soul, and I honestly would not recommend this remake at all. It was unnecessary, forced, and wasn't memorable at all. I'd only really suggest watching it out of morbid curiosity, and the way the film ties up, I don't really see them touching any of the other films, but you never know with these remakes. If you're looking to recapture the magic of the original, just rewatch the original 2002 film. I had a great time revisiting it. It has a much better soundtrack, a beautiful animation, it still holds up in terms of story and how many of the characters are redeemed. I always loved the evocative scenes between Stitch and Jamba, with Stitch reading The Ugly Duckling book and how he now wants a family. It's heartfelt, beautifully written, and very weird, but most importantly, it was made by folks who care about storytelling. Part of the magic behind the original comes from the animation and voice acting, and it feels like stepping into a whole new world, and it's still one of my favourite films from my childhood. Let me know in the comments if you've seen the 2025 Lilo and Stitch film. What are your thoughts on the current status of Disney's live-action remakes? As always, I love hearing your thoughts and opinions. Leave me a like if you enjoyed this review, and for more content, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, DVD Review Studios.
Are you threatening me?